Hi, welcome to this video on facade design pattern. In this video, we'll be looking at what the facade pattern is, how it works, and the use case of for this pattern. But before we begin, let's consider the problem that facade pattern solves. So what happens in large software systems that can be large software systems can be complex and difficult to work with. What I means is like their code base will be very huge, right? New changes will come into the code base. So maintaining the existing code readable, you have to keep on changing, and you have to change it so that it should follow the three quality of any good software. What it is your code should be extensible, and your code should be maintainable, and it should be readable. And what is the fourth property? Extensible, maintainable, readable. And there is one more thing I believe, but the bottom line of this is you have to write minimal code. Okay. So, what is facade pattern? The facade pattern is a structural design pattern that provide a simplified interface to a complex subsystem. So, if you have some complex subsystems, right, which works internally, you have to talk to, right? You have to talk to A have to talk to B have to talk to C, something like internal. So, what the facade pattern is way of hiding the complexity of a system by providing a simplified interface that shield the client from the detail of the subsystems implementation. It was like if I want to use its system, I have to integrate with suppose I am one of the client that want to use this complex system, so I have to uh, understand the system and then uh, integrate with it. Suppose the client 2 have to do the same thing. So what facade pattern do? It will hide this complexity, right? How? By creating a facade interface. This is a facade interface, and it will abstract the complexity. And now all client will be connected to this one, right? This. This one. So what you did, actually what you did, here it is happening that code dupli duplicacy is happening, right? You have to write similar code for integrating of client 1, client 2, client 3 on some level. I'm not saying that exactly copy paste, but some level. And now what you did, you uh, you pull that out, the similar code, and you put it in a facade class or interface, like in a general form. So now in second case, the client all client will be integrating with the facade, facade, and the complexity of this system will be abstracted by facade interface, right? Now client doesn't have to know. The facade pattern is made up of several components. So let me introduce the terminology. What facade is here? So actually, facade meaning, if you search in a dictionary, it means the front of any building, on front of any system. So that's what we are creating. The facade provide a simple interface to a complex subsystem. The facade class is responsible for uh, facade, and this is a some complex system that is internally talking to some series of steps, some cross connection mesh thing is happening. So facade is, yeah, what was I saying, the facade class is responsible for delegating client request to appropriate subsystem object. Now what subsystem is, subsystem is a set of a class that implement the functionality of the system. Got it. The subsystem class are not visible to client, and facade shields the client from detail of the subsystem implementation. Okay, it is same point. The client is the code that use the facade to access the functionality of the subsystem, Makes sense. The facade patterns works by providing a simplified interface to a complex subsystem. The facade class provides a single point of entry for the client, and client uses the facade to access the subsystem functionality. The facade class delegates request to appropriate subsystem object, and the subsystem object handle the request and return the result to the facade. So I believe you have get some basic basis of the facade pattern what we are trying to do. Now let's look at some use case for this pattern. The facade pattern is used in many real world software system, including operating system, libraries, and framework. So operating system is going to be the easy example to understand you, because everything whatever technology you are using, it should be on top of operating system. So operating system, what it does, it abstract the whole hardware, right? So you can think OS is a single facade itself, and you are a client to it, and it is abstracting the whole hardware system. So the operating system provides a simplified interface to complex hardware and a software subsystem of a computer. The user interact with operating system through a graphical user interface or a command line interface. The operating system should shield the user from details of the hardware and software subsystem, providing a simple and consistent interface to the user. Makes sense? And now come to libraries. So libraries do the same thing, right? Libraries and any framework like React, and these are also good example of subsystem that uses facade patterns. A library or framework is a collection of a classes and function that provide a set of feature or functionality to a client. The client uses the library or framework by calling it function or method. The library or frameworks hide the detail of its implementation from client, providing simple interface to its functionality. Let's take an example of sample software project to demonstrate the use case of facade pattern. Imagine that we are building a social media platform that has many subsystems such as user authentication, content management, search, and notification, right? Each subsystems has many classes, function, and that implements its functionality. The client code that use the social media platform need to interact with this subsystem, but it doesn't need to know the detail of this implementation. Correct? We can use facade pattern to simplify the interface to the social media platform subsystem. We can create a facade class that provide a simplified interface to the subsystem. The facade class can delegate the request to appropriate subsystems object. Makes sense, right? So we can encapsulate this subsystem and we can create a new facade interface in front of that, that will delegate the responsibility for the client request. And so I hope you guys have got the gist of what facade pattern high level view is. And as I am saying same thing in my every video, that this kind of knowledge you will be only learning through practice and experience. So, and I will going to add some concrete example in future if I got some, if I have some time, I will do that. So till then, yeah, bye bye. Keep learning.